Hello, and welcome to the recording of the Sub-Edge Farm Field Day, CT NOFA's first live event in over a year. My name is Jeremy Pelletier, and I'm the Director of Operations for CT NOFA. I'll be your host for this virtual tour of Sub-Edge Farm. Here's Dina Brewster, CT NOFA's Executive Director, kicking things off.
All right, I guess I can get out of the tent for a minute. I'm Dina Brewster, I'm Executive Director at Connecticut NOFA. And we are thrilled to be here today. We have just 2 hours together, but I first of all wanted to just thank Rodger and all of the folks at Sub-Edge for having us here. It has been a long haul since the last time we gathered, and it's exciting to be able to bring us sort of back to the land, so to speak. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was planning on seeing you guys today is that this work that Rodger has embarked on almost 3 years ago with NOFA is made possible by the NRCS. Jim is here to represent them, and it is a conservation innovation grant. So our focus today is really on conservation agriculture and in specific innovations within that. I'm going to introduce Jim Hyde, who is here from the National Resource Conservation Service, and he is going to talk a little bit about one of the there are sort of two sides of our soil health work, one of which is what's happening in tillage reduction and under the soil, and the other is what's happening over it with cover crops, and in specific how cover crops interact with no-till in organics. So Jim is going to talk to us about cover cropping, and then afterwards we will get out into the sunshine and walk a little with Rodger. Thank you all. Over to you, Jim.
All right, thank you. All right, very happy to get to be here. So nice to see people again. Rodger, thank you very much for this opportunity. So appreciate it. Couldn't agree with Dina more. Just without people like Rodger and allowing us to come out to the farm to do things like this, we just wouldn't be able to move forward as quickly as we do. So being able to have the opportunity to experiment, to try things, to fail things is just invaluable. I'm going to say one small thing that I wanted to share with you today, and that's just that there's more information out there now available related to cover crops. One of the big questions that we get is, how do you decide which cover crops to use? How do you know which cover crops are available, what they do? And there's been a really significant effort now spearheaded through the USDA ARS, the Agricultural Research Service. So what that did then is it created this site. So the Northeast Cover Crop Council, if you just type that into your favorite web browser, Northeast Cover Crop Council, that will take you to this page. There's a handy little button for a decision tool that's on there. You click that button and it will take you into the decision tool page. Very excited to mention that there are two tools on here. They're both linked to each other. The first one is what we're calling the Cover Crop Explorer, which is just the database itself. So all it is just the database of information. It's the pool of all the plants in one location, so you can see everything in one spot. You can click on those and get more information. The second tool that's on here is what they call the Species Selector tool. This is a separate tool, but it is linked. So it gives you the opportunity to answer just a few very quick questions about your location. And then based on your location, your soils, your climate, it will pull a subset of those species from the database for you to look at. So it gives you some idea based on what goals you have or what you'd like to do with your soil, with your crops. This will pull some of those subsets. And I will just mention quickly that there is a third tool in development. This is probably the one that's asked for second. Right after the question of which cover crop should I plant, the next question is, how many do I plant? Or what's the seeding rate for each of those? And so the third tool that's coming online shortly is the seed calculator. And that's where they're going to give their best guess on approximate rates on how to mix and match and seed those things. So that should be on this page within the next year or so. So just very quickly, I'm going to run into the Cover Crop Explorer. Again, this is pretty user friendly. It's got all the common crops on here. and I just want to mention that because it's the common crops, that means it's not everything. It's a lot, but it's not everything. The ones that are most commonly used for the Northeast region and are expected to do best out here. But you'll recognize a number of these pretty quickly. I'm just going to click on the cereal rye, the winter rye very quickly. It's got just a very general description, kind of just in layman terms, what it is, how it works. It's got some pictures so you can kind of see what it is. And then this is where the database starts to pull its information. If you can see on there, it's got some graphics with the different bars, kind of like your gas tank. Is it empty or is it full? And that same kind of diagram is on here for, is it considered to do really well at things like soil organic matter and soil aggregation? There's another one on for this particular one. It mentions pollinator food. Does it provide a good pollinator habitat? So in this particular one for winter rye is not considered one of the better ones for pollinators. It's pollinated by wind, and so it gets low marks for winter rye on pollinators, but it gets very high marks for all the root biomass that it produces for soil organic matter and soil aggregation. So it's that type of information that's pooled into this database. Everything related to weeds, environment, soils, drainage, climate. One of the important ones that I want to mention just quickly is the termination. So the termination, in my opinion, is one of the key critical elements related to cover crops, because if you do not terminate the cover crop, then that cover crop quickly becomes a weed. So just a very important part of this planting process when you're thinking about the cover crops aspect is, how are you going to stop that plant growth? I am a huge fan of having roots in the soil. The more roots you can have throughout the year, I think the better that your soil is going to be. But be sure that you have a way to stop that crop from growing so that it doesn't become a problem later on down the road. So termination methods is, there's some helpful information on here related to termination. Growing dates, there's some what they're calling extended comments, which is because we had such a large group of people, everyone had maybe slightly different opinions or words of wisdom that they wanted to get into here. So they created this extra space for extended comments just for those words of wisdom from all the people that they pooled from. And then I was pretty pleased to see the references and resources. So there's a pretty extensive list of references, all with active links. You can just click on those links and it'll take you right to the website and get more information. And that's the way it's set up for every single species in here. There's quite a few. There's grasses, brassicas, legumes, and broadleafs. So those four different kinds of plants in here. You can add it to a list, so you can put a whole bunch of them on your list. If you want to create a short list, then you go up to the top of the page, and at the top of the page, it's got a spot for my cover crop list. That way you can select the ones that you're most interested in, put them in a short spot, and come back to those later. Lots of different ways to search and organize. There's lots of different filters that's on here. Everything from the termination method, the growing, the soils, the moisture. So all kinds of different ways to sort through here. I should have mentioned that it is divided up by plant hardiness zone. Just a quick mention, if you have any questions or other people have questions about the plant hardiness zone, a very quick web search for USDA plant hardiness zone will take you to a large map. You can hover over the map and you can select your area. It's got all kinds of different colors on there. From the colors you can figure out which zone you're in. So this specific zone is zone 6 specifically. It will even go a little bit further to say that it's 6A for the different microclimates that are in there. So once you know your zone, or if you know your zone, you can select the proper growing zone that you're in, and then it's pretty straightforward. So that's the database all by itself. And then just very quickly, I'll mention the species selector tool. So the species selector tool, again, is pulling from that same information, but it just asks you a few questions, and it can get very specific. On here, it asks you for your location. You can put in your zip code, but you can also put in your exact address. I'm just going to type in a zip code in here, so it's kind of random. So 06084 is for Tolland, Connecticut, the town of Tolland. We're in plant hardiness zone 6 for this location. There is, on the left-hand side of that map, there's a pentagon, a 5-sided polygon. If you click on that pentagon, what it says is draw polygon. So if you click on that, then you can find your farm or find your field. It doesn't have to be field by field. I think I'd encourage you to maybe go farm by farm, and it'll pull out the information for that area. So I'm going to just draw a very simple polygon. So I clicked on all 4 corners, and then I go back to the first corner and I double click to close the polygon. And now it's locked in that location. I'll go down to the bottom of the screen and click next to question number 2. And then that has gone out to the soils database. It's brought in the soils for that location. It mentions what the soil composition is, the drainage, the moisture levels. It asks you the question, is there tiling involved or not, just to help with the whole soil moisture aspect of it. So you're going to have to answer yes or no. Is there field tiling? And then it has the flooding frequencies. At any point, you do have the option to change those, to add information or change it based on your information, your local knowledge of your fields and of your soils. But once you've confirmed that, again, you can click on next. It goes to question number 3. Talks about the climate. It's got the average temperature, the frost dates, frost-free days, growing degree. It doesn't have growing degree days, but how many days are frost-free for growing in there. Again, review that information, click next. And then this is the setting up the goals. So these are some of the most common soil health goals that's in there. There's a number to choose from. This will let you choose up to 3. I think just for starting out, I would encourage you to start with 1. The more goals you incorporate, the more data it pulls in and the more choices you get. One of my personal favorite ones is with nutrient management. So I'm going to click nitrogen scavenging for the nutrient management, and then click next. And then this is the subset. So this is what the tool was developed to do. It goes into the database. It looks for those plants that have the highest rating for that option, for that goal. In this case, nutrients. And then it puts them in order. You can change the order, you can change the filter, you can have it just tell you the grasses, just tell you the broadleafs, any of those different options. Very similar filtering to what we saw on the full database that's on there. But this just allows you to, again, just to shrink the choices, so it lets you focus on some of the aspects that you want to look for with your companion crops, cover crops through the soils.
Plenty of information here from Jim Hyde on cover crops, showing us these excellent cover crop decision support tools designed and developed by the Northeast Cover Crop Council. Now it's time to walk the fields with Subedge farm owner and manager Rodger Phillips. Here he is introducing the farm and the exciting innovations they're working on.
All right, well, welcome. Thanks Connecticut NOFA and NRCS, our good partners with us. Nikki is our NRCS agent, and she helps us in a lot of different ways on the farm, doing a lot of these things that would be hard to do on our own without help. I usually talk about how we look at the farm as an organism. Like, it's not just the farmer or like the farm family, or it's the farm workers, it's the customers who come and buy the food in the farm store. It's our landlords, it's our neighbors, it's our seed suppliers, it's our extension specialists, it's our agricultural experts and friends at NOFA. So all of you guys, everybody together makes what a farm is a farm, and I just wanted to start by recognizing that. This is our 8th season being at Subedge Farm. My wife Isabel is my co-farmer, and I'm here with my 5 kids, our farm crew. A lot of them are here today. Someone told me years ago that once you get to year 7, then you start figuring things out on the farm a little bit better. And we sort of felt that last year. We're like, yeah, okay, we're starting to think. And then we had the opportunity to lease another 100 acres, which we did, and now we're sort of set back a little bit because it's like starting to learn to farm all over again. Going way back, of course, the first people to farm here were the Native Americans, the Tungus people. 2 years ago, the state discovered an archaeological site on the farm that dates back to 15,000 years. So people have been here farming and growing food. And wherever there's good soils like this, there's always people. There's people always gather because this is where, you know, good food can be grown. So talking about cover crops, we do a lot of cover crops on the farm. We do winter rye and vetch pretty much every year in all of our veggie fields that are overwintering. In the spring, we like to start with peas and oats. We're doing a new mix. We like to call them cover crop cocktails. So we just sort of, like, a lot of times take what we have left over from years prior and just mix them up and throw them out there. But we're doing one we bought this year called Ray's Crazy Summer Mix for our summer cover. We've done buckwheat, we did triticale, and we've done sorghum, Sudan grass, and crotalaria. Always usually a mix of some kind of grass or and legume. So you get those benefits of both the carbon fixing and the nitrogen fixing at the same time. We ventured into this project to learn more about no-till. We've met some really awesome no-till farmers who are growing on a smaller scale than we are. We're doing about 20 acres of vegetables. And I experimented with some no-till when I was an urban farmer. It was a little bit easier to do like some smaller beds and say, let's see how this works. But on 20 acres, it can be a different kind of story. So we heard about some of these tools, one of them being no-till seeder and no-till drill, which we actually rented one before and we had good luck with it. Another one more specifically for vegetable production is the roller crimper. And the roller crimper is actually, that's the machine right over there. That's the I&J roller crimper. And the idea with roller crimpers is that you grow a crop, a cover crop of winter rye, and when it's about the right time for termination, you roll it and it snaps, bends over, breaks, and dies, and hopefully doesn't pop back up again. We did 2 years with the roller crimper. The first year we tried it on an area that was not one of our prime soils. It was kind of like, this is an experiment, let's put it off to the side, this field we haven't really used. And it was a very grassy field. It had been pasture, and a lot of grasses, annual grasses that were weeds came up with alongside the rye. So we weren't able to grow anything into that year. Last year we had a pretty successful trial of growing tomatoes with the no-till method. So we grew the rye, we terminated it at the right time. We did have some vetch mixed in with that patch of rye, and that was a mistake because the vetch didn't really get crimped by the roller crimper. So then we had to end up covering it. We covered it with with a mat and solarized it, and that killed the vetch really well. But we would do it without the vetch if we did it again. And then we planted 2 beds, I think 250 beds, rows of tomatoes. And I was a little bit skeptical at first, I remember, because I felt the soil was so compacted from rolling the roller crimper over it. And we had problems even sort of digging into it. It just felt so compact. I didn't have high hopes that this was going to be a good tomato crop. But we got out there with the trowels and shovels, whatever we could. We got them in the ground, and the tomatoes did fantastic. It was a really good, a positive experience. Jim was talking about good experiences, but also failures. We've definitely had our share of those. One of the big ones that we did, the big mistake that we made this year, is the reason that the roller crimper, one of the reasons it works so well is because it's heavy. It's made of steel, but it's also full of water. You fill it with water. Well, on our checklist of things to do for the fall, we forgot to drain the water out of the roller crimper. And of course, it expanded in the winter and it cracked. So we found that out this spring and we said, oops, oh well. So we're not going to use it this season. We're going to wait till next year. It's going to be a winter project to get it fixed, and then we'll try again next summer. So we're a little disappointed because we did have some beds ready to go with rye. for that. So that's sort of our venture into the no-till territory. We also do use the no-till seeder. We're going to demonstrate that in a little while, or at least go take a look at it. We've got it over in this field. So besides vegetables, we do some livestock. We always say that even if we were vegetarians, we always have livestock on our farm to help improve the soil. Really what we're trying to get into is a 3-year cycle where we do 3 years of grass and then flip it, grow and then grow 3 years of vegetables there, and then sort of repeat that process. We know some growers who grow like that and are very, very successful with that. So that was part of our vision or idea of obtaining this next 100 acres. Is not so much that we're all of a sudden going to grow 100 acres of vegetables, but more we'll be able to better manage these rotations and these cover crop plantings. And so we won't be so forced and constricted, and we're going to choose to use the very best fields for the vegetables and for the rotations, that is. So we are certified organic, all our vegetables and our hay. For the new fields, we're going to be transitioned to organic. Basically, you're doing everything you have to do to be organic. You have to pay the fees, you have to keep the records, you have to use all Omni-approved fertilizers, etc. But you can't say you're organic until that 3-year period has passed, because this was in conventional corn before we leased it. So we have organic on this side, transition to organic on the other side, and they'll eventually meet in 3 years, and it'll all be organic again. So obviously everybody knows this is a working farm, so there's hoses and giant holes occasionally open up, and electric fence and all those things. So just be careful when we're walking on the field. If you have any questions as we're walking along, feel free to ask.
So now we're going to head over to view some of Rodger's no-till equipment that he uses. It was a beautiful day. Great weather, 70-something degrees out, no humidity. So we enjoyed the walk through the field. So here, Rodger will explain to us how he uses his no-till seeder in his farming practices.
So this is our no-till seeder, and we use this for a couple of things. One thing is for pasture restoration. Instead of saying you have a pasture that's not in the best condition or have the best plant species, etc., you don't have to go in and till and plow and reseed, which could be a legitimate thing, but instead you're using a no-till method, which is basically overseeding the crops that you want. So you could put in overseed grass seed. We often overseed clover onto the pasture, and what makes it no-till is it's got some cutters that you're welcome to come up and take a look at that will first make a little trench, and then 2 openers that actually will sort of cut open a slit in the soil, and then the seeds will drop right down into that slit, and then it gets closed up with the rollers in the back. It's got 2 hoppers for different size seeds, so for your larger peas or beans or what have you, and your smaller clovers or grass seeds here. And it's got a handy kind of a guide for your rates for common cover crops. We also use this in a tilled situation, so we'll use this for spreading our cover crops at the end of the season. So we've had tomatoes on the field, or we've had summer squash. We pull up our plastic, and we can run this right over that with our winter wheat, etc. So we do a lot of our seeding with this. We had hoped to do another no-till experiment with the cornfield across the street. We said if whatever we can do to reduce the number of passes we have to make, the better. So we said, let's try the no-till seeder to put some cover crops down. And we tried it, and we knew right away it wasn't going to work because the condition of the field, there was so much corn residue, there was just so much debris that it got caught up in the coulters, and there was no way to possibly cut through it. So that could be managed differently if we were growing the corn, and maybe we could make it cleaner. Somebody said, oh, maybe you can bale all that corn waste, different things. But in the end, we did a light disking so we could get a little more soil to seed contact, and we're going to run this over that coming up pretty soon. So we were just actually waiting for an okay from NRCS for some funding that they helped us with to actually help pay for some of the actual seeds and seeding.
We're going to take a 7-minute break from the farm tour to play this video put together by Connecticut RC&D, Resource Conservation and Development. This short film shows the operation of the no-till seeder you just saw, along with info on SIG, no-till, and cover crop pilot project.
There's an idea of independence that a lot of farmers have, to be outside, to be self-sufficient and working on their own. And I know I feel that too. That's kind of one of the reasons that I'm a farmer.
But nobody can do all the things we need to do on our own. I'm Rodger Phillips, and this is Sub-Edge Farm. We started the farm in 2013. We're in Avon and Farmington, Connecticut. We have 289 acres total. We're doing 20 acres of fruits, vegetables, culinary herbs, 20 acres of pasture. We heard about this program opening that would involve sharing of equipment between growers, and it was something that we were definitely interested in.
I'm Amanda Fargo-Johnson, and I am the Connecticut RC&D Agriculture Programs Director. Connecticut RC&D, in partnership with USDA and NRCS, hosts the Soil Health Initiative in our state. And 4 to 5 years ago, we had really realized there was a need for organic farmers and non-conventional farmers to terminate cover crops. And so what came to mind was providing an equipment hub where area farmers could use pieces of equipment cooperatively. And so we were able to, through a conservation innovation grant, get funding to set up 2 hubs in our state. It's a 3-year pilot project, and it will wrap up the fall of 2020.
My name is Jim Hyde. I'm an agronomist with the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS. One of the things that we've been working on recently across the states is soil health. And soil health is largely trying to create or recreate a fully functional soil that can support plants, animals, and ultimately humans. So the benefits of going from a conventional system into a no-till system with a soil health aspect of it can be many different folds. Everything from reduced water consumption, increased water availability within the soil, the nutrient cycling. So saving nutrients within the plant matter above ground and within the root matter below ground, and allowing all those nutrients to cycle through the soil profile, largely within that root zone that we're shooting for.
I'm Josh Bristol. We're on Bristol's farm in Canton, Connecticut. We are technically a conventional farm, but we try follow organic methods as much as we can. We've got about 15 acres. We grow diversified vegetables and a whole lot of sweet corn.
I've been interested in no-till forever to cut down the time we spend on the tractor, to see how it would work and to learn. You know, equipment's really expensive, so if you get a chance where you can get a piece of equipment on the farm and see what it will do and not have to purchase it and then find out you've purchased something that you really can't use and it isn't really what you need, it's huge.
So the value of doing this program was being able to supply farms with this equipment that can be costly for some of the smaller farms to purchase individually. So by us purchasing it for them, it gave them an opportunity to experiment with the equipment, learn from each other, try it out.
My name's Andy D'Apollonio. I own and operate Still River Farm here in Coventry, Connecticut. We do about 29 acres now. What I grow is wheat and rye for bread, and I grow flint corn, a yellow flint corn, and a heritage flint corn. You gotta take your time in setting it up. Meaning, for instance, the level of the machine, whether it's level or not, the seed rates, you know, and the type of seed that you're going to use, and in what kind of environment you're going to plant it in, whether it's going to be bare ground or one that's covered with organic matter like straw. So all of these things you have to take into account, and then you know you got it right and look at it a couple of weeks later and it's coming up.
I'm Tom Wells, owner of Hillside Farm in Mansfield Center, Connecticut. I have a small dairy farm that I started around in 1980. I have about 150 acres of hay and 50 to 60 acres of corn. I like to use that seed drill because it's heavy enough that it gets the seed down at the proper depth.
This no-till seeder it's the first thing I ever saw that I was impressed with, no-till. When I looked at it and seeing it work, it is top-notch.
They're really nice pieces of equipment. Dealing with sub-edge and going and getting equipment, Rodger has been just accommodating in his help. Whoever was there always just let us right in. The hardest part of it was getting the equipment from there to here. Once you got it on the farm, it was a breeze, really. It was almost self-explanatory. I missed the first meeting and I just towed it back and used it. Read the manual and went to town. So I've been getting the grain drilled 3 times a year. In the years we used it, the first year we didn't put enough down and then we increased our seed.
As far as the roller crimper goes, our first time using it, I find that we probably didn't seed the rye heavy enough. And because of that, when we crimped it, there were some annual grasses growing up with the ryegrass, and they kind of took over. And so we had to turn it under because it was just too heavy of weed pressure.
This program started 3 growing seasons ago. We have mostly organic farmers, farmer pledge farmers in the western part of the state, and in the eastern part of the state we have a diversity of farmers. We have dairy farmers, we have a greenhouse grower, grain grower. So it's worked out very well. We have a roller crimper and a seed drill in each of the hubs. Because the equipment is used seasonally, we do have to kind of limit how many farms can use it within each hub.
I do think that the equipment sharing is a great idea, and I think there could be more of that with more specialized pieces of equipment. I think we're definitely going to continue next year, and maybe the difference would be in what crops we're going to plant.
My family's been farming this plot of land for getting close to 150 years now. You know, the health of the soil makes a huge difference as far as getting the crops established without just doing it all chemically. You know, it's important to me to be a steward of the land and to pass this land off as good as I found it.
All right, so we can maybe head out and see what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk down this field, past where the truck is, and then we're gonna walk past the cows and we're gonna check out the new fields across the street.
Rodger then took us across the street to a field he had just acquired, 100 acres that had been growing conventional corn for several years.
Actually, we're going to get to see.
He will explain his plan as he works to transition the land to organic growing.
Compost that. Yep. So I want to take a scenic stop at the manure piles. To just mention that, like a lot of farms, if there's anybody who wants to bring us carbon, we usually say, okay, we'll take it. So we have we'll take some wood chips. We like to spread the wood chips right onto our pastures. We don't even let it compost sometimes if we have the time, which is the biggest hurdle. And we also have a good relationship with the polo club down the road, and they bring us their horse manure and bedding, and we all spread this on the hay fields or the pastures. To sort of give you the lay of the land here, the farm is about 1 mile long, up and down road. We've got about 20 acres of pasture over there, a 10-acre hay field, a nice little 5-acre vegetable field up in the back by the pond, and about 10 acres between the the maple tree there, and then the barns. And then over here, there's about 15 to 20 acre field here. And what we're doing right now is we're turning this into a hay field. So we're going into hay in a big way this year. And then the other 50 acre half of it is going to be, we're putting it into cover crops. So we're really going to be, we think those are really good vegetable soils for down the road. So we're going to be doing just 3 years of building up soil biomass and improving the soil, which has been in conventional corn for a long time. And so we're hoping really just to do some improvement. This feature here is this hill. It's called Glacial S. And it was originally, well, years ago it was pasture. And we're hoping to clean up some of the invasive species around that, cut down some of the more junk trees. So we applied for State of Connecticut Farmland Restoration Program grant this year, and we got that, and that's going to give us, I think, $20,000 to be able to clean that up and put some fence around here. So we're excited about that.
The years of transition, what do you see as the biggest hurdle? It's such a big deal that you're doing this.
Yeah.
But like, what are the biggest hurdles? Obviously, you talked about just the time of 3 years, but are there equipment concerns or anything else that you have as you are running operations in parallel?
Yeah, that's a good question. For us, it's a little funny because we're not like a conventional farm that decided to be organic. We're an organic farm that has some conventional land that we want to turn into organic. There is some funny things like labeling and storage. You know, like we have to have a special area for conventional produce. So it's sort of the same thing with the transition produce. We try to keep things very simple with our labeling. We don't even use the word organic a lot, which our inspector seems to like because there's less paperwork for them, kind of thing. So I think that we say we're a certified organic farm and people get that. And that's one of the reasons we like being organic, is because it's very clear. You know, people are like, oh, it's an organic farm. I know what that is. But it's definitely a challenge because there's a lot of paperwork involved with setting up new fields, but there's a benefit from it. It's the same benefit, I think, to organic certification itself. Is when our certifier comes, it's not like, oh my gosh, it's an inspection, we got to clean up this place, or, you know, it's like, oh, they're going to find out something. They're really there working for us to help us. And that's how I feel about organic. Is that a lot of times our inspectors are good. They come out and they give us tips, or they say, oh, you know, I saw another farm and they were doing da-da-da-da-da-da with their compost. So there's pros and cons, I guess. So we're going to walk around the back of the esker. It's basically walking through an empty field, but it just sort of gives you a feel of what the farm looks like. And then we'll come up and we'll pass the poultry. So there's 1,000 layers in here, and the structure is mostly like a shade structure, really, to have a place for them to get out of the sun and also away from aerial predators. And their nesting boxes and their food and water is also all located inside. Alex pulls it with the tractor, so it has a tow bar, and we'll move the fence up like 100 feet, 200 feet, and then shoop, just pull it right up to the next open area. And it'll zigzag up all and down in this field. And the smaller ones that we have are the exact same kind of system. They're just usually pulled by hand, and they contain our broilers, so our meat birds are in there. And Alex, what are we doing? 100?
120 at a time for about 6 weeks.
All right, 120. So pretty much every week we have birds going off to the slaughterhouse. We use Buffonis in Rhode Island. And demand for our pasture-raised chickens is high. And chickens and eggs are things that we honestly didn't think we were going to be doing when we got here. We were vegetable farmers. But then just like from the interest, from the excitement of the community itself around that, we've just expanded those offerings. This year we also added a greenhouse to this field. for next year, we're going to use it for as a prop house for starting our vegetable transplants. And at the same time, we added a well on this side of the road. Right now, we're carrying water over in plastic totes, and it's very labor intensive. It's not a good system. So we've got the well house built. And again, this is partially funded through NRCS, a well house, and then we're going to have a buried water line that goes along the length of the field. So we'll have a constant supply of fresh water for these birds.
Are you rotating if this is a chicken field this year, is it going to be cows or something else?
That's what we're hoping. Yep, we're doing fencing like a little bit at a time. So to move the herd, for me to want to comfortably move the herd out onto a field like this, I want to have a good border fence, and we don't really have that here. So we put one big area over there with a nice fence, and we graze cows in there for the very first time this year. It was a lot of fun to move the cows across the road, stop in traffic. People were like, "Whoa, this is great!" And so we're going to do a similar thing over here. Like once we're going to get this fenced in, we'll be able to move the cows from there to here to over there. Same thing with the chickens. So we definitely want things to be mobile, to be moving on the farm, to flow. And that's why it's mobile coops. Everything is mobile. Keep things moving, keep things healthy. Always have fresh grass for the animals to be on. And this is Gracie. She's our livestock guardian dog. Yeah. Alex, you want to speak to training Chip and Gracie at all?
A lot of it is in them. I mean, really the biggest thing is pairing the dogs with whatever they're guarding. So you just want them to be used to being around, know their surroundings, know what their borders are, which is why we have the fence. And then the predator control itself, it's once they know their territory, they know what's supposed to be there, they know what's not. If one of you guys was to walk into the field, she's going to start going crazy. If I walk in the field or if Rodger walks in the field, she'll be fine.
And what if it's a couple of coyotes who walk in the field?
They won't be there long. They generally chase them out.
The dogs are pretty good even with hawks. When they see one, they come out barking and can scare them off.
Well, that pretty much wrapped up the field day with some catching up and discussions that followed. We do wish more of you could have joined us during the day, but I hope this recording allowed you to feel like you were a part of the action and allowed you to see what Rodger and his team were doing at Sub Edge Farm to further conservation agriculture practices. If you would like more information about soil health, please visit us at ctnofa.org. Or you can also visit the NRCS website where there's links to the cover crop decision support tools. You can also email us, ctnofa@ctnofa.org, to stay in touch, or you can check out our YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us.